Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom.
It's our News Digest. We're going to spend the entire time talking about the effects of ocean acidification. Acidification just means to make something more acidic, to put more acid into something. I know it's not particularly good for our bodies, so it can't be good for the water, right, Tom?
Indeed. So acidification is the noun here of the verb acidify. Acid, of course, is a state of matter. Things are either acid or they're base or alkaline.
Alkaline, yeah.
So basically, you need to know that on the pH scale or something.
pH scale, yeah.
pH 7 is like neutral there. That's why they try to sell you soap and shampoo that's pH 7. It's neither acid nor alkaline.
There's also a type of water, bottled water for sale in the convenience stores where they have the initials pH. And it's supposed to be, something that's not acidic. Yeah, alkaline is supposedly healthier for you. I don't always look at that. I want food that tastes good.
It's part of chemistry, of course.
Yeah.
And I think the ocean is supposed to be more neutral.
Yeah.
But I guess that nowadays, because of our numerous problems in the world, the ocean is getting more acidic.
You're throwing trash in there.
Indeed, it could be all that plastic that's floating in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
So it's all about the effects of ocean acidification. There's too much acid in the ocean. What is that doing to sea life? How is that affecting the food chain? And are we all going to die because of it? Well, that's what we're going to try to discuss in today's program. Let's read through the entire article right now.
A study published in February 2019 reported on a decline in the numbers of Atlantic cod, linking the problem to ocean acidification. According to the study, as the ocean water becomes more acidic, fewer cod larvae survive. Scientists have been studying the problems caused by ocean acidification for a long time, and every new finding brings home the huge scope of the issue. Ocean acidification is caused when carbon dioxide is absorbed into the water and reacts with it. Too much of this raises the carbonic acid in the water and reduces the ability of shellfish to produce calcium carbonate, which they need to build their shells. Oyster farms are already seeing a reduction in survival rates, and other species, such as mussels, are also threatened. The consequences of ocean acidification extend beyond this. For one thing, oysters and mussels help clean the oceans by filtering water. For another, the loss of ability to make calcium carbonate affects corals as well. Acidification, along with rising water temperatures, is responsible for the loss of coral reefs and the habitats they provide for hundreds of other marine species. Humans are also affected. We lose important sources of food, and the reef's natural ability to protect our coastlines from storms is disappearing. Preventing ocean acidification isn't easy. Carbon dioxide enters our atmosphere when we burn fossil fuels. Stopping this is easier said than done, as it will require a global increase in the usage of renewable energy. However, ocean acidification is a critical threat, and to stop it, we must try to work together to be as green as possible in everything we do.
Okay, it's time for us to discuss the contents of today's lesson, our news digest for the month of July. So we're talking about the effects of ocean acidification. The oceans are getting more and more acid in them, and that, of course, is a dangerous situation. So a study published in February of 2019, earlier this year, reported on a decline in the numbers of Atlantic cod, linking the problem to ocean acidification. So there was this study published earlier this year, and it was talking about this reduction in the numbers of Atlantic cod. Decline just means the reduction of something. Something is lower in number. So, of course, the amount of Atlantic cod has been going down. Cod, of course, is 鳕鱼 in Chinese, a kind of fish, and this is a kind of cod that lives in the Atlantic Ocean. But the numbers have been going down. There is a decline, not an increase, but a decline.
Yeah, so I looked at this and immediately thought, oh, that's my favorite fish. I love cod. It's not very fishy tasting. And if you're a fan of British fish and chips, you've probably had a lot of cod to eat. Do you know the cod family includes the haddock, which is also a really good, mild white fish that is great in fish and chips. You can tell there's a theme here. I really don't like much fish. I eat salmon because it's healthy, and I eat tuna because I like tuna fish sandwiches. But I really do like cod and haddock because they don't taste so fishy, and I don't enjoy that kind of fish. But sadly, it looks like the kind of fish I like is decreasing. So the numbers are on a decline or have declined, you could also say, according to this study that was published just recently, this year in February 2019. So according to the study, as the ocean water becomes more acidic or has more acid in it, fewer cod larvae survive. Larvae is a word for baby whatever. So these are baby fish we're talking about. Larvae is a pronunciation for the plural form. If it's the singular form, it's spelled L-A-R-V-A and it's larva. But here it's the plural, which is larvae. Kind of weird, I know, because it has an A-E at the end. But I think it's coming from the Latin, the original word. So larvae for plural, larva for singular.
Right, and remember the word fewer is used with a countable noun. So, of course, larvae here is countable. That's plural. So, fewer larvae. You could say fewer people, for example. There were fewer people at the bus stop today than there were...
Fewer apples.
Than there were yesterday.
But for non-count, what do we use?
Less, but it seems that nowadays people use less for both countable and non-countable.
Don't follow that bad example, though.
Yeah, we're not supposed to teach that or encourage that.
Less bread. Yeah, less bread, less equipment.
Less pizza, less milk, less water,
fewer
stuff
apples,
like that.
Yeah.
But people still use less for countable nouns, even on news websites. I was surprised there, but still, technically, fewer is for countable and less is for non-countable. So yes, fewer cod larvae survive, hence they cannot grow into big cod and be caught and be made into fish and chips. So that's probably driving up the price of fish and chips. Gee, how come fish and chips are so expensive? They were so cheap last time I came to England. Well, you can ask us why this is happening because of the decline in the Atlantic cod. Now, scientists have been studying the problems caused by ocean acidification for a long time, and every new finding brings home the huge scope of the issue. So scientists have been looking at this problem for a long time. They have been studying this problem. That, of course, is present perfect progressive there. They started doing this in the past, and they are continuing to do it into the present. So they have been studying this problem for a long time, the problem of acidification in the oceans. So every time they have some new research, it brings home the huge scope of the issue. To bring something home in this particular case means to remind us or to make the point, make it more obvious that this issue, this problem is very big. The scope or the scale or the size of this problem is big. It's always bad news.
Yeah, when I see this phrase to bring home something, I immediately think of 强调什么 because that's what it really is. It's emphasizing something. You really are getting it. You're making a strong point that this is a really big issue. The huge scope, the size of something would be the scope. We'll often use scope to talk about scientific studies in particular. Wow, the scope of their research was enormous. So it really does emphasize how important it is for us to take care of the ocean. So moving on to paragraph 2, it says ocean acidification is caused or made, it happens, when carbon dioxide is absorbed into the water and then that water reacts with it. To be absorbed into something just means that thing is taking something in. Let me use a real thing as an example. A sponge that you use to wash your dishes. You might open the package and the sponge is dry. So you put some soap and water on it and it gets sucked into the sponge. The sponge is absorbing that liquid. And then you can wash your dishes. Kids absorb everything. Their parents might think their kids aren't listening, and then one day their kids turn around and are using bad words. They're swearing, and the parents are like, oh, I never taught them to use that word. Kids listen and watch people all the time. They're absorbing everything. So that's why we have to be good examples as adults for kids. So that's how it's caused, is this carbon dioxide is being sucked in or absorbed into the water, and then that water and the chemical carbon dioxide react together.
Right, and they form a new chemical. Too much of this raises the the carbonic acid in the water and reduces the ability of shellfish to produce calcium carbonate.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So here we've got carbonic acid, which is basically H2CO3. Okay, so you've got a couple of hydrogen atoms there and carbon trioxide. I hope I said that right. CO3 as opposed to CO2. H2CO3, that's carbonic acid. And therefore shellfish, which are fish in the ocean that have shells, they produce another chemical called calcium carbonate. And that reduces the ability of shellfish to produce calcium carbonate. So they need that chemical to build their shells, and so without it, they don't have shells. That can cause some problems in the ocean.
Yeah, if you've seen chalk or limestone, you're seeing an example of something that has that calcium carbonate in it. So it can form naturally in nature, obviously. If the shellfish use that to produce their shells, sadly, they're not getting enough of it because of this ocean acidification. And we're suffering because we need these shells that oysters and other shellfish have, like mussels. I don't really enjoy eating oysters or mussels, but
me neither.
They are very, very important to clean the water. So even if you don't like to eat them, remember, we need these little marine creatures, these marine animals, to be healthy so that they can continue filtering the water that they live in. So they need that calcium carbonate. They're not getting enough of it. And oyster farms, of course, there are people who actually raise oysters outside of the ocean. You know, they're trying to produce them in a more unnatural setting. It's like salmon farms. My dad refuses to eat farm-raised salmon. So anyway, they have these farms that produce fish and seafood. They're already seeing a reduction. A reduction just means something that is lessening. There's not as much of something. To reduce means to take away from what you have. You don't have as much. They're seeing a reduction, the noun form, in survival rates. To survive means you continue to exist. You don't die. So that's not good. And other species, I mentioned mussels, it's another type of shellfish. They're also being threatened. When we use that word threatened to talk about animals or creatures, it just means there's something in their environment that makes it dangerous for them to continue to live. There's something hostile there, and they might not make it, after a couple of generations. Who knows, maybe one day we won't have mussels or oysters.
Yeah, shellfish, of course, are a big part of the local seafood diet. So this news might affect you all here. So yes, mussels, other kinds of shellfish are threatened. Okay, that brings us to the midway point in today's lesson. Let's take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，欢迎收听 English Digest， 我是哈利。我们今天要阅读的文章是 Unit 15, The Effects of Ocean Acidification. 文章标题中的 acidification 是酸化的意思 ，acid A-C-I-D 是名词，酸的意思，也可以当形容词，意思是酸的、酸性的。Acid rain 就是指酸雨。另外 acidic A-C-I-D-I-C 也是形容词，意思也是酸的、酸性的。我们看到全文的第一句 A study published in February 2019 reported on a decline in the numbers of Atlantic cod, linking the problem to ocean acidification. Study 后的过去分词 published 是关系代名词省略后的分词结构，原来是 a study which was published， 将关代 which 省略后，其后是被动语态，所以 be 动词 was 也一起省略，只留下 VPP published。 再来我们看第一段最后一句的前半句 Scientists have been studying the problems caused by ocean acidification for a long time。 本句使用了现在完成进行式 have 或 has been 加 VING， 现在完成进行式和现在完成式 have has 加 VPP 都可以用来指从过去某个时间点一直持续到现在的动作，而现在完成进行式是用来强调这个动作还会继续下去。例如 Jim has worked at this company for 5 years。 吉姆已在这家公司工作5年了，但还会不会继续下去并不明确。Jim has been working at this company for 5 years。 吉姆已在这家公司工作5年了，而且还会继续下去。要注意的是have has been 加 VPP 是现在完成式的被动语态，表示已经被怎么样的意思。例如 The novel has been read by millions of people。 这本小说已经被数百万人读过。文章的第二段提到海洋酸化是如何形成的。我们看到这一段的第一句 Ocean acidification is caused when carbon dioxide is absorbed into the water and reacts with it。动词 absorb 在本句是吸收气体或液体等物质的意思，也可指吸收知识的意思。As the financial advisor of an international company, Tom has to absorb a lot of information. 身为一间国际公司的财务顾问，汤姆必须吸收大量的资讯。Absorbed 的形容词是 absorbed, A-B-S-O-R-B-E-D。意思是全神贯注的。片语 be absorbed in something 就是指专注于某事物。例如 Kevin was so absorbed in his studies that he didn't notice it was past midnight。 凯文如此专注的读书，没有注意到已经过午夜了。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue with our lesson. This is all about a chemical process here. Ocean acidification. You've got carbon dioxide absorbed into the water. It reacts, which creates carbonic acid, and that causes shellfish to produce less calcium carbonate so they can't build their shells so much. And of course, we've seen some reductions in survival rates of various kinds of shellfish like mussels. They are being threatened. Hopefully, they are not threatened with extinction as many animals are. Now, here in the next paragraph, it says, the consequences of ocean acidification extend beyond this. So, for every action, there is a consequence, something that happens. If you don't go to see the doctor about a pain in your chest, well, the consequences could be you won't be cured of that disease and you'll die of breast cancer or something like that.
Or a heart attack,
or whatever. So, yes, indeed, you should see the doctor if something like that happens. There are actions and there are consequences. So, the results of this, the consequences of ocean acidification, extend beyond this. It's not just about mussels, but it affects the whole ecosystem here. To extend just means to go out into a wider area, to cover a larger area, or be longer or wider.
Yeah, it reminds me of an extension cord. If you're, was it 延长线? When you want to reach something but your cord isn't long enough, we'll often buy extension cords that allow us to be further away from that electricity, the little socket on the wall. Extension, yeah. If you're into yoga, they might talk about extending your arm further or extending your leg farther behind you to get a better stretch. So you'll see that oftentimes when we're talking about exercising.
Or if you want to stay in the country longer, you might get your visa extended so that you can stay longer if you're having a good time. And for one thing, let's talk about some other consequences that extend beyond just the mussels and the shellfish. For one thing, as an example, oysters and mussels help clean the oceans by filtering water. So here we've got the word filter being used as a verb. It can also be a noun. You might have a water filter at home. We have a water filter at home, so we don't have to boil the water. It just goes through the filter. The water is filtered by the water filter.
Oh, that's good. You can buy pitchers that have a filtering process, like Brita, and then I think there's a pitcher named Zero or something where it takes out the bad things in your water. So for another, it says the loss of ability to make that calcium carbonate affects the corals as well. Coral is that really beautiful, usually beautifully colored coral shell, the reefs that you've seen pictures of. I think Taiwan has some coral reef. So coral, yeah, the kind of the dead bodies, the dead shells of animals make up that coral reef. That's making it very sad that we're losing our beautiful coral reefs as well. Now, acidification combined with or along with rising water temperatures, these two things are responsible for the loss of coral reefs. And then also the habitats they provide for hundreds of other marine species. We know because a lot of marine scientists, biologists, marine biologists, I think they're called, have studied the little creatures that live in those coral reefs. They make it their home. But if those coral reefs start disappearing, the homes or habitats for the marine species are also going to be lost. So got to think about that. Habitat just refers to where animals live, where they feel comfortable living. And it's not a zoo. It's where their natural habitat would be. So their natural home or environment of any animal or plant. It could be either one. It doesn't have to be just animals.
Okay, so you might think, well, too bad for them. Bully for them. All these fish in the sea. What does that have to do with us? Well, humans are also affected. We lose important sources of food, and the reef's natural ability to protect our coastlines from storms is disappearing. So yes, it does affect us. Of course, it will reduce our sources of seafood, for example. And then if storms come, the coral reefs will not protect our shores so much. So there'll be erosion and stuff like that, flooding. There'll be all sorts of problems.
We have lots of typhoons here.
Yeah, so that's something we should definitely be concerned about here in good old Taiwan. Now, here in the last paragraph, it says, preventing ocean acidification isn't easy, okay? It's not an easy problem to solve. Carbon dioxide enters our atmosphere when we burn fossil fuels like coal and gasoline. That, of course, produces CO2 or carbon dioxide, and that eventually gets into the ocean. So stopping this is easier said than done, as it will require a global increase in the usage of renewable energy. So it's easier said than done. Yeah, let's just stop using fossil fuels. Well, some people say, no, all this is just false. It's not true, and people don't believe it, so they keep burning gasoline and coal and stuff like that. And, of course, we need to use more renewable energy to help solve this problem. Renewable just refers to things that can be used again, like solar power, or there's also geothermal energy.
Well, the only thing that's really going to be able to replace the fossil fuels is nuclear energy. But people are too afraid of it. Do some more study on that. It's not as scary as you might think. We've made a lot of progress. Yeah, so one of these things that you're hearing from people is we just should stop having planes, and stop having cows and hamburgers. There have got to be some things we can do that are more logical. One of the things we could do is definitely make sure that we don't contribute to the ocean's demise. We need to keep it clean and do the best we can at keeping some of these things away from our beautiful oceans. We have a beautiful world. So stopping, this is easier said than done. This is a very popular phrase. If it's easier said than done, people are like, well, just do this. Well, yeah, just doing this is hard. Who's going to stop flying in planes? That's not going to happen. So we got to come up with some ways to increase the usage of renewable energy, nuclear energy. However, ocean acidification is a critical threat. Critical means very, very serious. If someone's in critical condition at the hospital, it means they could quickly turn and actually do worse and pass away. Or if they're taken care of, they can possibly survive. But it's really a very important time. It's a very serious threat. And to stop it, we have to try to work together to be as green as possible in everything we do. Yeah, Taiwan being green isn't going to be enough, or even the United States. We need everyone to be thinking green.
Is it already too late to save the planet? Well, that's up to you to decide. And right now we're going to take another break and listen to our Chinese teacher before we say goodbye.
我们接着看到第三段的第二句和第三句用了句型 for one thing, for another。一方面，另一方面又怎么样？来举例海洋酸化所带来的后果。我们用这个句型来造一个句子。I like the movie Avengers 4 a lot. For one thing, its special effects are very cool. For another, its plot is thrilling. 我喜欢《复仇者联盟4》这部电影，一方面它的特效很酷，另一方面它的情节很刺激。我们接着看到全文的最后一句。However, ocean acidification is a critical threat, and to stop it, we must try to work together to be as green as possible in everything we do. 然而，海洋酸化是一个严重的威胁。为了停止海洋酸化，我们必须试着一起努力，在我们所做的每件事情上尽可能的绿化。形容词 critical 有危急的、关键性的、批判的等意思。例如Jeremy is in critical condition. The doctors aren't sure if he'll make it through surgery. 杰瑞米的情况危急，医师们不确定他是否能撑过手术。本句用了一个句型 as 加形容词或副词加 as possible 或是加上 one can， 意思是尽可能怎么样。例如 When you are driving, you should be as careful as possible 或是 as careful as you can。你开车时应该要尽可能小心一点。以上就是今天的课程，谢谢大家收听。
Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Thank you for joining us, and make sure you join us again next time for another edition of our program. Until then, from all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.